Sliding over to the Western Conference, won't talk too much about Spurs Wolves, just in the simple sense that shout out to the Wolves for doing everything they could, but they also got shellacked in these games. And I think a lot of times, maybe it's the way that we think about these things is that these game sixes or game sevens are these like highly contested, back and forth games. Maybe the conference finals and maybe like the NBA finals are probably a lot more akin to those. But there are a lot of blowouts. A lot of blowouts. The Spurs blew out the Wolves, the Knicks blew out Atlanta, and the Sixers. We just talked about the Cleveland right now blowing out the Pistons. OKC blew out the Lakers, not in the last game, but the game before that. It is hard to match that level of energy for multiple games, but especially when you get down 1 game, 2 games, 3 games in a series. It's always the thing I remember. Max Kellerman, who used to be on First Take, always said this line that always made a lot of sense to me when he said it. He talked about the idea of anger, right? Or being mad. And he would say, if someone did something horrible to you, to where you got to the point where you want to physically hurt them, right? Whatever that thing is, they have done it to you, you want to physically hurt them. If the next day they do something else, right, that is essentially the same thing or a different version of that thing that will also get you to that level, you are not now more mad. You have essentially peaked at anger, right? Like the idea of you wanting to do something to hurt them was already met. All that has happened is you have to sustain that level of anger. That same thing happens in basketball, especially with energy. You can be as mad, you can be as upset, you can be as passionate as you want. But at the end of the day, if you're not able to execute and make the right plays, you're not going to do anything to anybody because you've already peaked with their level of anger. And the reason why I bring that up is because that's what happens to a team like the Wolves. They've hit that gas pedal too much. And when you hit the gas pedal too much, you end up with games where you end up just getting absolutely, utterly smacks. The Wolves are also in a funny spot because Julius Randle, once again, I'll always try to give love and respect to Julius as he was a part of the turnaround of a team that was, one of my favorite teams or is my favorite team, but it's just dead before he got there. He was awful. And there are going to be so many times where he's just going to be put into trades, and having a team like Minnesota, who is oddly just in a quagmire state, because you have a guy who's arguably a top 5 player in the league and should be one of the faces of the league. And yet you just feel like ownership can be cheap in the sense of who they trade away in Karl Anthony Towns. And number 2 is none of the big stars want to go there. And so they try to do different things by getting Rudy Gobert. They try to make that trade for Ron Dillingham that didn't necessarily work. And now they're going to be another one of the teams. And this is why guys like Kevin Durant can always act a fool, because someone's always going to want him, right? You're only as faithful as your options. And I think Minnesota is going to make a significant play to try to get Kevin Durant on the team again. Do I think that makes the most sense for them? Fuck no. But KD can't go back to that Houston locker room. He can't. Like, those dudes hate him. Whether or not he wants to drum it up in a certain type of way and be like, no, I wasn't saying that. You were talking crap about your teammates online on burner accounts, okay? And these are young dudes. They're not going to just forgive and forget that. That's just not how that works. So is he the guy they go after? Do they try and think and cover the nose and get Paul George? I can't see the Giannis thing happening. Do they try to bring in the big brain of Jaylen Brown, who, if you just look, just cursed out Stephen A. Smith? I don't know. But to me, they have to make somewhat of a big-ish swing. Not in the sense that I think Ant is looking to leave at any time soon, but there are just some type of dudes who I can tell aren't really good with losing. And this season aside, because there's so many guys just got hurt on this team, so this is not anyone's real fault. But Ant's a guy you can't just be, trying to nickel and dime and trying to go for it. If you think this guy is one of the best players in the league, then you are under an obligation, the Bill Simmons rule, to try and win the championship every single season. So we'll see how the rest of Minnesota does. But we now have it set up with the only thing that some people believe might be able to stop Oklahoma City. So many things are on the line with this Spurs OKC game. I think the best player available or best player alive title is on the line. I still stand by the fact that this is going to be the last year that we will ever say someone was better than Victor Wembanyama in the NBA until he gets to year 10, 15 at that point. And the fact that him and Chet still do not like each other is just going to be even more fascinating to watch. J-Dub is accepted to play. And I think this series is going to simply come down to how many times can OKC turn the Spurs over? If everyone looks at how the way the Spurs play, rather not the Spurs play, Oklahoma City play, they play in a way where it is almost like tied. You're tied. They might be up 2. You might be up 2. They might be up 6. You might be up 4. And then suddenly you're down 30. And you look around, you're like, how did you guys get down 30? It's because they turn you over, they block your shots, and they just score every single time. As a half-court team, they're not the best at that. They a lot of times just rely on SGA to get their points. But that is the secret sauce of how to beat them, or how they beat you, rather. And the Spurs have multiple guys they'll be able to ball hand, so it won't just be one dude doing it, whether it's Fox, whether it's Castle, whether it's Harper off the bench. Obviously, they also have Wembanyama. I think that I'm still going with Oklahoma City in 7. I do think, though, that obviously if I pick this team in 7 games, I think that the Spurs can win the series. But I just think that for the Spurs to get all the way there, they are going to need to have it be no doubt that Victor Wembanyama is the best player on the court. And while I think that's in this series, he will show that, I do think that the Oklahoma City overall team has more experience with it and understands what that moment is going to be like. And I think that they will ultimately prevail in a 7-game series against this team. And I think that this is going to be a series that we will be talking about for a long, long time, because these two teams are going to play each other in the playoffs, whether it's the conference finals, second round. These teams are going to be playing each other a lot for the next 4 or 5 seasons. And this is just going to be the first of the many matchups that we are going to see between these guys play. And there is just a scary thought to think that this is probably going to be the worst Victor Wembanyama is going to be for the rest of his NBA career. And can OKC really stop him if he just goes to another level? Because there is the one thing that I love so much about basketball is that there are times where we talk about schemes. There's a lot of times where we talk about effort. There's a lot of times we talk about, this player, that player, whatever. Sometimes it's just about, I got that guy, And when you got that dude and he knows he's that dude, ultimately all that other, matchups and playbook stuff, that stuff gets thrown out the window. And that is why Victor has a significant or realistic chance to send these guys home and potentially get to the NBA Finals and win the championship for the Spurs, even though I just picked, Oklahoma City to win the title, or rather just win this series. So yes, so we have Knicks OKC is my finals pick to start these playoffs, and I'm not changing it after what we saw. So I still expect it to be the Knicks versus the Thunder in the NBA Finals. All right, little short episode for you guys. It was just me. We will be back later this week to talk to you guys about something. But we're talking to you guys about something. We will have a guest later on. But thank you guys again for listening to the Men Who Cry podcast. It would mean so much to me if you leave the 5-star rating, if you like, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. All that stuff really helps me out so I can keep doing this stuff for you guys. And if you don't do those things, well, I just have to believe that you haven't put your AC in because it's summer season. It's Sunzest season. Don't get caught out here slipping in these streets. All right. Thank you guys again for listening. Peace out.